Hello guys, how are we all doing? Welcome back to Premier League predictions for the weekend. So many games coming at us yet again. If you haven't already, make sure to drop a like. We'll go for 200 likes and do subscribe. We're this close to 21,000 subscribers, so hit that red subscribe button. I'm joined again by Sophie.
Hi, you alright?
Yes, and you keep beating me with these Premier League predictions.
Wow, just too good.
I tell you what though, we didn't come close to the Man City 6-3 scoreline.
6-3, that was just ridiculous.
Honestly, there's some crazy games. Leicester winning 4-0, Arsenal win the North London derby 3-1. So many great games. Let's hope there's more this weekend. Let's get into the predictions, starting with Bournemouth versus Leicester City. Now, Bournemouth are still plucking up points. They're collecting them. A couple of draws recently. Could have had a penalty against Brentford, maybe. And then you've got Leicester City, who need to see that win against Forest as a turning point, because although it's lifted the pressure off Brendan Rodgers, it won't have lifted it massively. They still need to get out of that bottom three. I don't know which way to go. You've got a team that have just won, that might have their confidence up, versus a team that's above the bottom three when people might have thought they would be in there.
Yeah.
I'll go for a share of the spoils, a tricky one to predict. I think Bournemouth are going to keep their heads above water for another week. 1-1.
Yeah, I agree. I actually see this playing out as a draw. I think good result for Leicester. They played well as a team. James Maddison, special player.
He's got to be in that England squad.
He's got to be getting a call up now. But then it was against a poor Forest side, so it's like, do you take too much from that? So I do think they're going to get something against Bournemouth, but I think just a draw, but with goals, so 2-2. 2-2.
Okay, next up to Stamford Bridge as Chelsea take on Wolves. You were correct in backing Chelsea to win at Palace. They did just about do it. Conor Gallagher against his former side, and it's
Very
a good start for Graham Potter. They go up against Wolves, who lost and have now sacked the manager, and I don't see Wolves getting anything here. I just don't. I think Chelsea might start to hit a bit of form. If Graham Potter can get some things going, I feel confident for them. 2-0 Chelsea.
Yeah, okay, I was going to say 2-0 as well, but let's just throw another goal in there. I think 3-0. I think it is looking a little bit worrying for Wolves at the moment. Maybe sacking the manager, they might have a little bit of turn in form, but I don't think it'll start against this strong Chelsea team. So, yeah, 3-0 Chelsea. 3-0
Chelsea. Okay, next up we go to the Etihad as Manchester City take on Southampton. They look scary. They won 5-0 in midweek as well in the Champions League.
He could have had another hat-trick, but he got subbed off.
If he gets one goal, it's a poor performance from him. He's now averaging like 2s and 3s. Yeah. So, no disrespect to Southampton, but I just don't see them getting anything and quite easily swept aside. I'll say another 5-0 to Man City.
See, I'm going to say 3-0 Man City, which sounds crazy because usually you'd be like, if any team wins 3-0, like great performance. But 3-0 for Man City, that's nothing. That could all be Haaland. And I think it could be, you know. I reckon he gets another hat-trick. So 3-0 Man City or Haaland. Yeah,
and that's no disrespect to Southampton. It's just one of those games which is always a free hit.
It's just Man City.
Next up, we'll go to Newcastle as they take on Brentford. Now, this is a big game because these are two sides I fancy for the top 10. And I like both of them. I like them both a lot. I like the managers. This is a tricky one. I might sit on the fence here and say 1-1. I think Newcastle looking good. Really good win at Fulham. But then you've got Brentford, who are a pretty solid side as well. 1-1.
See, I'm actually going to back Newcastle to get the win here, but I do think it's going to be quite a tight game. So only one goal is going to separate it, and it's going to be 1-0 Newcastle for me.
1-0 Newcastle. A big game. Next up, Brighton take on Tottenham Hotspur. This is a big game because Spurs they haven't been terrible this season, but they're not quite at their fluid best, and they want to get a little run going here against the Brighton side who picked up a decent draw at Liverpool despite obviously losing Graham Potter. So I still think without Graham Potter, which is a big loss, Brighton still have a good enough squad to continue picking up good results, and I think they could deny Spurs the win, but I don't know if they'll win. I'll say another 1-1.
Do you know what? I'm actually going to back Spurs to get the win, but I don't think it's going to be an easy game for them because I think Brighton played well against Liverpool and they did very well to get a point from that. But I don't see them beating Spurs. I could see a draw playing out, however, I am going to back Spurs to win 2-1.
2-1 Spurs. Okay, it's a massive game, that one.
It is.
Next up, we'll go to Selhurst Park as Crystal Palace take on Leeds United. Palace, as I say, fell short to Chelsea, only just, and I don't think they've been absolutely terrible, but they are at risk of being sucked into the bottom three battle because there's not many teams being absolutely diabolical, so it's all quite even down there, and they could do with a point, or, well, ideally 3 points here against the Leeds United, who are doing okay. It was a 0-0 against Villa. They did have a player sent off, so it's not a bad result in hindsight, and I'm going to say another draw here. Both sides could do with a win. I'd say Palace probably need it more, but I just don't think there's a lot to separate the two. I'm going to go Palace 1, Leeds 1.
Yeah, see, I think for me, Palace is going to win this. I think it is going to be a tight game. I can't see it being a really high-scoring game, but I do see there being a few goals. I'm going to have to back Palace to win, so 2-1.
2-1. Okay, next up to the London Stadium. It's a London derby as West Ham take on Fulham. Fulham, they did get drubbed by Newcastle, but they had that early red card, so it kind of ruined the game for them. Mm-hmm. They've got to see that as a blip and try and go back to picking up points because they've been really good so far, and I hope they stay up, to be honest. But West Ham, could that be a turning point? They beat Wolves. Maybe for them, they need to start getting back-to-back wins, and they could do with the win here. They'll be the favourites, and I think they might have the quality to pinch this. 2-1 West Ham.
Yeah, I'm going to back Hammers win as well, but it's hard to say after, like, Fulham, they had quite a good start for me. Are they going to drop off, or is it just a bit of a freak result against Newcastle? I think the red card does change the game completely. So I do think they'll be in this game, but I think West Ham are going to win 2-0.
Okay, the biggest game of the weekend, Arsenal take on Liverpool. Now, I'd have thought at the start of the season Liverpool would be that team battling against Man City at the top of the table, but it's Arsenal. Liverpool won in midweek against Rangers. At the weekend they drew with Brighton. I don't think... They're just not looking... I think the thing is they've set the bar so high in recent seasons and they're struggling to meet it this season. No Mane. I don't know what you think of Darwin Núñez, but I don't know. Some players looking not quite themselves this season, and an Arsenal side which have improved drastically. Last season I'd have backed Liverpool in this kind of game, but basing it on this season, Arsenal look good. They were good against Spurs, and I think Arsenal pinched this 2-1.
Yeah, I'm actually going to back an Arsenal win as well. I don't think I've ever gone against Liverpool, but I'm going to have to this week. They are looking fairly poor this season, and it's the defence that is looking very leaky. To concede 3 against Brighton just wouldn't have happened a couple of seasons ago, and I think it's going to reflect in their performance against a strong Arsenal team. And I think their confidence is going to be really high because they put in a good performance against Spurs. And I think the scoreline's going to be the same, 3-1. 3-1.
Okay, to Goodison as Everton take on Manchester United. Everton improving a bit. It was a good win against Southampton.
Results, yeah.
And then you got Manchester United who lost 6-3 to Man City. Once again, when you lose to Man City, you can't read too much into it. But it was the end of Manchester United's very good run. We're recording this just before their Europa League game tonight. So I don't know. Can Man United bounce back? I'm going to say Everton get the win. I've been impressed by them recently, and I feel like they could grind out a 1-0.
Okay. What I will say about the United-Man City game is United did win the second half. So that's a positive you've got to take, aside from the 6-3 scoreline. I think Everton have had a bit of a turn in form, which is good for them. They've got a couple good results recently. However, I'm going to back United to get a win here. Tight game though, so 2-1.
2-1. Last up then to the City Ground, it's Nottingham Forest on Monday night action again, this time against Aston Villa. I just don't think I can go for Forest anymore. Based on that Leicester game, I'm sorry Forest. I'm sorry, but that was so poor.
That was
really poor. And I know they've struggled in a couple of games this season, but that was the one game I looked at them and thought...
You've got to try and get something from this.
They look out of their depth. Yeah. They really do. Villa, meanwhile, were okay in the 0-0 against Leeds. They had some good chances to win that. It's still a point. I'm not massively convinced by Villa either. I think with Forest being at home, I might be able to give them a draw, but I just don't think they look convincing at the moment. I'll say a 2-2.
Yeah, I would have said a draw. However, watching them perform against Leicester, where really they should have been up for that, they just didn't look up for it at all. They had a couple good chances, but that was it. So I think they're going to lose again, but 1-0 to Villa.
1-0 to Villa. Yeah. That wraps up our Premier League predictions, guys. Get your thoughts down below. Make sure, as ever, to hit that like button and subscribe. And we'll see you in the next one. Peace out.